How do you find cheap flights? This is one of the most frequent questions I get asked, and anyone who's traveled before knows that for most trips, flights are the most expensive part of the trip. Whether you're a budget solo traveler or a family looking to vacation abroad, finding a cheap flight can be what makes or breaks your trip. Because let's face it, if the flight's too expensive, are you even going to end up taking the trip? Probably not. So let me help you cut costs on flights with these 10 cheap travel hacks and allow you to travel more often. Incognito Mode. Use a private browser and clear your cookies, that way airlines can't check your browser history and increase prices every time you look. To do this on Google Chrome, you're going to press Command-Shift-N for a Mac or Control-Shift-N for a PC. Best websites to book. So Google Flights and Skyscanner are definitely going to be the cheapest options for you no matter where your departure or your destination is. A third website that I really do recommend that's specific to Asia is going to be Trip, so trip.com, or even take it a step further and download the Chinese version of the app, which is called Ctrip. I lived in China for a year, and then after that year traveled Asia for 6 months. So for those 18 months, I exclusively used Trip for all of my flights because it was significantly cheaper than any other site I found, including Google Flights and Skyscanner. Flexible dates. So to take it even a step further, you're going to utilize the flexible search options on both Google Flights and Skyscanner, so you can see which day of the month or even time of year in general is the cheapest to fly. Check nearby cities, so you can even play around with your destinations to find what's going to be the cheapest route. For example, when I was moving to Prague back in 2020 from Los Angeles, the flights were crazy expensive. I'm talking like, I think it was $750 one way, and that's probably because the flight pattern from LA to Prague isn't very popular. So I started doing some research and finding out what was the most popular flight route from LA to somewhere in Europe. And that's when I stumbled upon LA to Frankfurt as a very common route, and it was only about $350 one way. So we took the flight from LA to Frankfurt and then hopped on a bus at Frankfurt Airport to downtown Prague. So I was still able to get from LA to Prague, obviously a little bit different, not just flying direct, but it saved me over $400. Even if the other nearby city isn't close enough to take a bus or a train, like the example I just used, it's still worth looking into because sometimes buying that one-way flight and then another one-way flight to get to where you actually want to go is still going to be cheaper than buying the flight directly to that destination. Compare round trip to one way. So sometimes even playing around with booking a round trip ticket versus 2 one-way tickets can be cheaper. I would say for the most part this really applies to domestic flights because I have found that buying one ways domestically is a lot cheaper than round trip, and internationally it's usually cheaper to do round trip, but you never know. It's always good to play around, double check, and make sure. Change your location. So if you have a VPN, this is going to be super helpful. If not, you can actually still do this directly on the Google Flights or the Skyscanner website. Now, obviously this isn't a guarantee that you're going to get a cheaper flight, but usually the prices are a little bit higher in more affluent countries like the US. So if you were to change your location to a country that maybe isn't as affluent, sometimes the prices can drop for the exact same route. Search for flights during off-peak times. So you want to continuously look for your flight route at different days and different times throughout the week. I've read in so many blogs that the cheapest day and time is Tuesdays and Wednesdays around noon. But I found really cheap flights at different times, different days. There's not really a set schedule or set time in my opinion. You just have to be consistent with it and keep checking. Travel during off-peak time. So hopefully this is an obvious one. If you're gonna travel during summer break, spring break, Christmas, Thanksgiving, prices are going to be jacked up. So try planning your trip during a time where not everybody's going to be traveling, and you'll see the flights drop way lower. Don't forget, if you are heading to a destination that's below the equator, like South America, Australia, New Zealand, their summer and peak time is going to be December through February. So one of those locations might actually be the best route for you. Let's say you can only travel in summer, but you can't really afford to pay those peak prices. Go somewhere where, you know, it's still summer for you, maybe not summer for them, so that way you're not paying those peak prices and you still get to go somewhere. Flight alerts. If you're not urgently looking for a flight, I always like to set a Google flight alert for certain flight routes that I'm looking at in the future. You can set the Google flight in two different ways. Either I want this specific route on this specific day, or I just want this specific route whenever is the cheapest. Either way, it will email you every single time that this specific flight route, or even the dates if you did put those in, increases or decreases. So what I usually do is I'll do some research. What's the average price for this flight route? And as soon as I get that email that it drops below that average price, I'll go ahead and buy it. And the last one is to sign up for some flight deal emails. Two that I really recommend are the Flight Deal and Scott's Cheap Flights. For the Flight Deal, it's a lot more general. They'll just email you, you know, the top cheap flights that they found for the day from any airport departing from the US. I was really lucky growing up in Los Angeles, one of the biggest and busiest airports in all of America. So anytime I got those deals, there's usually at least one or two leaving out of LAX. So it was really important to me to check that every single day and just see where I could possibly go for cheap. But if you're not from one of the big airports in the US, it's not really going to be that relevant to you. So I do recommend signing up for Scott's Cheap Flights. For this one, you'll actually put in your home airport and then they'll email you anytime they find a good deal from the airport. So it's really nice. Obviously, if you're going this route, you have to be super flexible. I just usually love, you know, every day I get the email, I'll scroll through. Usually you're not going to find anything, but the one time you do find somewhere you really want to go, you can book it straight from there, and it's probably going to be the cheapest option you're going to find. I personally utilized this option when I did my first solo trip ever from LA to Costa Rica. I had no intentions of going to Costa Rica. I had nothing planned, and obviously I wasn't planning to go by myself because I'd never done that before. But I got that flight deal email and it was $200 round trip, so I just bought it impulsively without thinking, and it turned out to really change my life. So, you know, you never know what's going to happen. You just have to be super flexible with those flight emails. Just scroll, casually look, and if anything jumps out to you, you can book it straight from there. So let me go ahead and end this video by saying there is no sure way to get cheap flights. It's truly all about flexibility and timing, but utilizing these tips will definitely help you get the cheapest possible price for your next trip. If you guys have any specific questions about booking flights or something I can help you out with on your next trip, throw them in the comments below. Make sure to hit that like button if you found this video helpful, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos like travel tips, hacks, and itineraries. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.